Bonjour, bienvenue. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I'm going to be talking about reflecting on life lessons from a mature woman. I guess that's the only way I know how to put it. But I want to talk to you today a little bit about marriage and a little bit what happens when we're not married. So let's begin. I love weddings. I love weddings. I love the dresses. I love the outfits. I love everything. I love weddings. My first wedding at 18, I got married to my first love. I met him when I was 14, I think, and we went off to Biloxi, Mississippi, and eloped and got married and just had a fabulous little life for about 6 years. He had been to Vietnam for 2 years, and we had about 6 more months left, and so they sent us to North Carolina. But I want to tell you about the beginning of our marriage. Oh my God, I was so young and so immature, and my mother had not done me a big favor when I was being brought up. She brought me up in a house where she made up the bed, or the little maid made up the bed, or somebody did it. I threw my clothes all over the place. I just wasn't brought up to be responsible. And I knew how to make a steak, a salad, and a baked potato. That was it. So when I got married at 18, we went to Biloxi. We got married. I remember he had a $75 government check. And we cashed that, and we went to the judge at the courthouse. We sat down at his desk, and he married us. But before that, we had asked the receptionist, where do we go in town to get a wedding ring? So the furniture store had a huge glass shelf in front of the furniture store by the cash register, and it had wedding bands in it. And my wedding band cost $7, and it was a little silver band, and I loved it. And I got married. We came back to Texas. Now, I didn't tell my mother right away because my mother did not like him and didn't like his family. So it was really bad news. But I remember we went and lived with his mom, and I'd wash his clothes and I'd fold his clothes, and I just thought, oh my God, I'm so excited. I get to wash his clothes, I get to fold his clothes, and he showed me exactly how he liked his socks folded, because, you know, he was in the Marine Corps, so they folded it a certain way, and I thought, oh, I'm just so excited. But then about 3 or 4 days into the marriage, I got to kind of worrying about something, so I called my sister-in-law, and I said, Carolyn, there's something wrong. I think he's been injured in the war. And Carolyn said, really? And I said, yeah, I think he's had some damage. And she said, what from? And I said, well, I think there's something wrong in the sexual area. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, I've only seen one, and that was in a picture. Because, you know, back in those days, when you got married, you were a virgin. And I'd only seen a picture of one in a magazine, and it didn't look like his. And I said, I think there's something wrong. And she said, well, what does it look like? And I told her. She said, oh my God, Janice, he hasn't been circumcised. And I said, circumcised? I had to look that one up, and that was before the internet. I didn't know anything about that. So, but I sure felt better knowing that he had not been injured in Vietnam. And then I remember we moved to North Carolina. We were so poor, so very poor. We had a cat that was a stray. And of course we took it in. And I remember one day we had bought one of those canned hams. You remember those kinds that you turn the key to, and you had this ham and it had all this fat stuff. Oh my God, it was horrible. Anyway, I had made it, and we had baked it, and I had left it out on the counter, and the cat got to it and ate it. I said, I don't care. We paid a lot for this ham. I just sliced off that part where that cat ate. We ate the rest of that ham. I thought, I'm not throwing this ham away for anybody, especially a cat, just because it ate on it. We're eating this ham. And so we did. And we lived in a little trailer, and it's one of those that had the rounded part at one end, and one of those silver ones. And Oh my God. I remember one day he came home from work. He worked 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and he was an MP. And he came home from work and he said, Janice, this place is a pigsty, an absolute pigsty. I said, so clean it up. I was a spoiled brat. And he said, Janice, I'm not cleaning up. I've been working for 12 hours. I said, what have you been doing? Waving people through? You haven't been doing anything. Of course, I hadn't been doing anything either but watching TV. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to live like this. He went in that other room. He got his green duffel bag and he started putting his clothes in it. And then the clothes that I had, his khakis that I had ironed, he got them out of the closet. And he said, I'm going back to the base. I said, what are you going to do at the base? He said, that's where I'm going to stay. I'm not going to live in this pigsty. Great, go back. And we had a long driveway from our little trailer. And I watched him walk down that driveway. And I thought, okay, Janice, you can either be stubborn and let him go back to the base and spend the night, or you can get your butt up and go to him and tell him you're sorry and you'll clean that kitchen up. So which one is it going to be? So I decided that I would get my butt up and I would go after him and say, I told him, I said, Kenny, I'm sorry. I'll clean up it all. I'll just make dinner. I'll do everything. Just please come home. Don't go to the base. And he did. And he helped me clean up the kitchen. He was so nice. And it was so nice he wasn't injured in the war. But anyway, we had so little money, but I remember once a week in North Carolina, we would go and get hamburgers and French fries. Oh man, was that a treat. Because since we had such little time left in the service, they didn't give me my money. They were going to give it to me or to him, dependent money, at the very end, not during the months that we were there. Very, very poor. And then we moved back to the States. And then I told you my mother didn't like him. So when we had Christmas, we'd have Christmas together. And then I'd go to my parents' house for Christmas. And then I would come back. And then we would go to his parents' house for Christmas. And I remember the very first year we were married, he had $350 in bonds. And he cashed that. And that's what we bought everyone's Christmas with, including ours. And I had mentioned to him, because he loved to play golf, that I would like to play golf too. Oh my dear Lord, that Christmas, I got golf clubs. I got golf, and I wanted purple. I got golf clubs that were purple. I got the golf case that was purple. I got lavender golf balls. I got the little, the little rag that you wipe your hands off with that hangs off the golf bag. That was in purple. I got shoes that were in purple. And then I got one personal item, and it was a short nightgown, and it was in purple. Oh my God, I had the funniest. And I bought him some tools from Sears and Roebuck. And he was just so happy, and I was so happy. And then I would go to my parents, and we did this for 2 years. And my mother would call the house, and Kenny would answer the phone, and she'd hang up. And Kenny would say, by the way, your mom just called. Oh, okay. So I'd call her back. Not once did he ever say, well, your mother's this or your mother's that. Not once did he say that. And one day, after about 2 years, I get a phone call from my mother, and she said, hey, what's for dinner? I said, I don't know. Why? And she said, well, I thought I might come over for dinner. And I said, well, what do you want? And she said, I thought maybe Kenny could put a steak on the grill for me. I said, yeah, we sure can. And I got off the phone. I said, Kenny, you won't believe this. Guess who's coming to dinner? And it was my mom. And they became such good friends. Such good friends. He was a jewel to me. And I have to tell you, I was pretty darn good to him too. So I started this video off showing you that I have been married and I have had so much fun. And then when I married Jennifer's dad, Steve, We met through one of those match things in the newspaper. You call, you put down that you're wanting to meet certain person, and then you call them on the phone. This is before cell phones, and you would talk with them, and we met. 3 weeks later, we were married. 3 weeks later, we were married. A year and a half later, we had a baby. Yeah, I talked him into adoption. You know the story. If you've not seen the story, it's one of my videos, but it's the sweetest, most wonderful day I ever had in my life. So I am telling you, I have been happy in marriage. I have traveled with my husbands. I have been unhappy, but I've been more happy than not happy. And then when my husband died in 2012, I had Jennifer to raise. Life just became taking care of Jennifer and living life like that. And then when it was time for Jennifer to move out, she moved out. It was okay with me. So it looks like, if I count up the years, 3 years that I've really lived by myself. And you know what? I have to tell you, in all honesty, I've had more peaceful days, more tranquil days, and, just days that I've enjoyed life. I'm not saying I would change anything about my life, but I have felt more peace being alone. The solitude is not bad for me. I know a lot of people, they don't like being alone, but I like being alone. I think that I have made more friends by living alone because it gives me the opportunity to step out of my comfort zone and to invite friends to go places, or maybe to join that group that's going somewhere. And I think it really has helped me to be a better person, to be single. Now, I do have some male friends that I go to dinner with, and I have some male friends that come and visit me. In fact, I have one male friend that I'm going to go meet him and his family during Christmas in Germany, and then I'm going to go with Max, of course. We're going to go on to Vienna. And I remember when I started dating this young man in the States, he said, I have never met anyone like you before. I'll call you up and say, hey, do you want to go to dinner or something? No. Really? No. And that's after 2 years of dating him. And he said, I never met anyone that just wanted to be by themselves so much. But he said, I finally got used to it. He said, in fact, I was on, I think he went on Matchmaker or something like that. I don't know, one of those, Match.com or something. And he met a woman, and she was a school teacher. And he said, Janice, she's just like you. She said, now don't expect me to see you every week because I won't. I have things to do. And he said, I met someone just like you. I didn't know there were two of you out there. But I think I've always liked solitude, and I've always liked peace and quiet. After my husband died, I did do the meet and greet things. I remember walking to Starbucks, and I said, oh, hi, Jimmy, how are you? And he said, I'm not Jimmy, and I don't know you. And this other guy out there is going, hi, Janice, it's me, Jimmy. And I said, oh, my gosh. I like this one better because he was cuter. But anyway, you can hear Max in the background, and I'm sorry. I apologize. But anyway, it's just different now that I'm single. And I don't want to do any more first dates. I don't want to do any more meet and greets. I'm done. I like living by myself. I like the solitude. And I love the independence. Now, with living alone, it does come with a little negativity. Something was brought up to me last week, and something was brought up to me the week before, and I thought, well, maybe I need to look into this. So I checked with Beverly, my friend here in town. What we're going to do is we're going to text each other in the morning, put a little check mark that we're okay. So therefore, somebody's not laying here dead or broken their leg or something like that, and we don't have any help. And then I gave her my address, and I gave her all my medicine and all of that. And she did the same thing for me. And I know how to get hold of her daughter because her daughter does live here in France. So I did have to give her Jennifer's husband's information so that they could get a hold of Axel and let him know that something's happened. And I have written Axel and told him that I am going to have a will. And I've also written Axel and told him what I want, what I don't want, because I want to live in France as long as I can. And they have nursing homes here. They have places that I can live here. So that's what I want to do. And I've given him instructions that I want to be here. And if I die here in France, I've given him instructions about what I want to do. I want to be cremated here in France. I want to be taken to the Eiffel Tower and a little bit of dust in a certain way. And then Jennifer can do what she wants to with the ashes. Of course, I'll be buried next to Steve, but, you know, she can do whatever she wants. So it does come a little negativity living by yourself, because once you start getting older, you think, oh my gosh, what happens if I fall or I trip or something and nobody knows I'm here for 2 days? You know, so there are those drawbacks. And another drawback, you know, sometimes even visiting Paris, we don't know what numbers to call. So what I've done is I've set up a little ebook, and I've given you really good information if you're visiting Paris, who to call, what to do, or if you're living in Paris, who to call, what to do. And I've given my information of my medicine and how to contact Axel. And I've given it to my friends, Paul. I've given it to my friends, Beverly. And also I made a video a couple of years ago, and Mary Grace has that video. She's going to send it to me. I'm going to send it to Axel. And next week I'm going to make a will. Now, I've never even thought about it, but now that Jennifer's married and now that things are different, I just need to have a will, and I need to have it written so he knows what to do and he can handle it. And I have all the faith in the world that he can handle it. So it's just different now, but you need to have those kind of things lined up. Now, I didn't think that much about it until last week someone brought it up, and the week before someone brought it up, and I thought, man, is somebody trying to tell me something? But no, I just need to have everything in order and let everybody know what my wishes are. Now, you know, in the States, we have what we call a DNR, do not resuscitate. And in France, it's called patient's rights and end of care life. So I will have something written up here, and I will have it translated into French so that I have it. So my friend Beverly will have a copy of it. My friend Paul that lives in another little town will have a copy of it. And then Axel will have a copy of it so that I can take it to the hospital here and they will know what to do with it. So it's just being prepared. I may not use any of this information for 5 or 6 years. I may use this information next week. But one thing about it, I have taken care of things. So that's one of the drawbacks of course, living by yourself. You know, it takes thinking about it and planning about it. And I met a young man the other day, and he was visiting Paris, and he came and filmed me for one of my little collaborations I did with a company called Goelia. And he said, Janice, I don't have any children. I don't have anyone. So there needs to be a friend or someone that you can call, or maybe your doctor, give the information to your doctor or your minister or your priest or someone that they can contact someone in case you do become ill, because it is important that people know what your wishes are. So in my little ebook, I'm going to give you the information you need, and you just go to my community, JaniceInFrance.com, join my community, and then ask for the ebook we'll call On Emergencies in France. And we'll send it to you. And if you're in another country and you need more information, all you have to do is go to the American Embassy, and they have all the phone numbers listed that you need. And there's even one helpline. I think it's open from 3 to 11, and it's in English. So that is extremely helpful. So I just thought I would do that for you and talk to you about the fun things about being married, and now that we're older, living alone, and how really good it can be. And I hope if you are alone that it's good for you and that you're okay with it and that you're getting something from it. Now, you know, every other week or 2 times in the month, I have a wisdom and wellness class that we talk about being alone, we talk about anxiety, we talk about anything and everything. If you want to be part of that Zoom group, you can email me at janiceandfrance@gmail.com. And I have in my sleeve another group I'm going to do once a month, and it's going to be for widows and widowers. Because even though you're alone, going through grief alone is a little bit different. Sometimes we have children that don't speak to us. Sometimes we have children that don't even understand what we're going through. So once a month, I am going to be doing a group. So if there are any women here in France that don't speak French fluently, that can't go to a therapist or someone here that it's happened to, we can all get together on a Zoom once a month and talk about what it's like to go through the grief, what it's like to go through the grief process. Sometimes, we're still going through it after 10, 12, 13 years. It doesn't have an end to it. There's no end date to grief. You grieve when you need to grieve. And that's just the way it is. So I want to have that once a month, and I hope that helps other people out. And see, that's one of the advantages for me being alone. I can do things like that. I can help other people like that. But if I were married, my husband or my partner might say, you know what, Janice, you're spending a little bit more time than you should. You're not giving me enough quality time. But since I do live alone and I can do what I want to, that goes back to being that independent, I can do some of these items that I think help other people. And that's what this YouTube has been all about at the very beginning. To encourage other people to live their life. Not to encourage people to move to France. I never, ever wanted to encourage people to move to France. I know sometimes I talk about it because I know there are more people moving to Europe. So I do give a little advice on that. But I never wanted the YouTube to be something about France. I wanted it to be about you and what you can do to better your life, how you can step out of your comfort zone. It may not be moving to France. It may be taking Zumba lessons. I don't know. Maybe you want to move closer to your grandchildren. Maybe you want to move further away from your grandchildren. Maybe you want to move to Florida. Maybe you want to move up north. But take the plunge. Get that confidence in yourself and say, hey, I can do it. If she can move across the pond to France with 3 suitcases and a dog and a cat, I can move to Florida. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I hope you have learned something. Please join my community and ask for the emergency list, and you may want it just if you're coming this summer to visit France. So thank you once again, and as always, Max and I, we love you.